What do you do when you hear voices down the hall? What do you do when you see a shadow in your room? What can you say when you see eldritch lights in the sky? Do you have the strength to believe in the unbelievable? To embrace the impossible? To go beyond the beyond? Join my friend as we explore the dark corners of the cosmos. So we are back. So I've been gone for a while, and I'm going to tell you why. Um, this is a really hard thing to talk about, but I think it's going to be beautiful in a way. So I had word that about 3 weeks ago that my ex-wife, Christiane Stevens Burke Wilson, um, died, and this is the reason I have not been on for quite a while, because I've been having to deal with this death. I had to go to the funeral. I had to leave Los Angeles, where I'm based right now, and go to Utah and see what was basically my family, which was a beautiful thing to do because I miss them so much. A little background. Uh, Christy and I have been separated for about, I guess it's been about 5 years now. Um, I'm not going to get into why we split. I don't want to say anything mean about her, because she really was an amazing person. But we became enemies, as you do in divorces, and it was pretty bitter. 3, 4 months ago, Christy and I started talking on uh, on Facebook, and we started to reconnect again. You see, in a lot of ways, Christy is my the yin to my yang. She balances me where I'm overly serious about absolutely everything. She was not. She was a very goofy girl, and that's one of the main things that attracted me to her. There are other things as well, like her strength and her personality is just like a force of nature. But that's what attracted me to her. And yeah, she had a stroke about 2 months ago, where she couldn't remember anything. And then she went into the bathroom and died. So, my apologies to all of you fans who were excited about another show and excited about that we're going to have guests and all that thing, but right now this is more important. So, who was Christy? Well, Christy was born in 1973, May 23rd, 1973, in Salt Lake City. I believe it was Salt Lake General Hospital, something like that. She lived pretty much her whole life in Utah. Um, she's part of a big family. She has two sisters, Angela and Tracy, both amazing people. Um, uh, Great parents in Easton and Peggy Stevens. And she had a lot of friends and a lot of people that loved her very much. She had another. Her first ex-husband is Joseph Burke, who is a very sweet man and also understands the paranormal. And then there was me. Let me talk a little bit about, this is a paranormal show, and don't worry, we'll be getting to the paranormal because Christy quite often was my cohort in paranormalness. Even though I think it scared her to death having a ghost hunter as a husband. Anyway, I met Christy in 1993. Um, I'm a goth. I like listening to bands like The Cure, Depeche Mode, Sisters of Mercy, things like that. And I was out to the club in Salt Lake City. I had just moved there. I was homeless for a little bit. sleeping on couches and stuff like that. Anyway, and I found this house that was kind of in a ghetto, but I didn't mind. So it happens when you're young. I was only 20 years old. So I go to this nightclub and I see this woman, this beautiful woman, and she's smoking these tiny, tiny little cigarettes. So I ask her for one and we strike up a conversation. We talked pretty much all night, and I cannot remember exactly. I know her sister Angela was there, and Angela was kind of a chaperone for us. But we went off with my friend Mike, and I don't remember where we went, but I remember that after we came back, Christy kissed me and said, "There's more for later." And I'll never forget that. Okay, so paranormal. So, one of my favorite paranormal stories about Christy um, is that we went to Europe together. My father sent us to Europe because they thought that in the early mid '90s that we were going to get married. We didn't get married till 2006. We kind of did this thing, and I'll get into that as well. Um, but we were in Switzerland, and Christy started having these dreams, and she would wake me up in terror, talking about this guy without a face. And I was like, "Whoa, okay, okay." And she would say, "There's this guy without a face. I keep seeing him in my dreams. I know he's here." Now, I'm only 21 at this point. I've had a few paranormal experiences with the house in Montana. I'm not doing this professionally yet. Uh, I think the most I do right now is listen to Art Bell, uh, and maybe read some books on the paranormal, on magic and mysticism and that kind of thing. So she takes me and says, "The man without a face is up in the attic." So the next day, me and Christy start climbing the stairs where we should not be. Christy was always a rebel, which is, I am not a rebel. I am probably the most straight laced person you'll ever meet, uh, like like Superman. But she took my hand and we started climbing these stairs, and all of a sudden we got into the attic where no one was supposed to be, and there was this bed, and on the bed was this helmet. It was a Nazi helmet from World War II. It was ancient, and Christy said, "This is where the man without a face used to live." And I knew at that point that what Christy was experiencing was not a dream, but it was a ghost, an actual ghost. And she had a couple of dreams later on, but then she said that spirit moved on and she had no more dreams of that. So that was kind of, I don't know if it was our first paranormal experience together, because when when you are wrapped so deeply in someone's soul, like I was with her, um, a lot of things will happen. Another thing, this is right. Well, actually, I should say this. We broke up in 1995. We didn't see each other again until about 1997. And this began a dance that we did pretty much our whole entire lives. Um, no matter where she was or I was, we would run into each other on accident every 2 years without fail. The first time was in 97. Um, and from 95 to 97. And I ran into her sister, I believe it was at the nightclub. And I went up to Christy's house and then saw her because I believe Angela said that Christy would want to see me. And Christy at that point was engaged with Joe. Well, she wasn't engaged, but she was seeing him, and I could see that. And this is somebody, the old adage, if you love somebody, set them free. And that's what I was thinking. I said, well, she obviously loves this guy. And I could tell that she was conflicted because we ran deep. We ran very deep. It was almost like a kind of soul connection between us. I mean, there were times when we could read each other's minds. And I do believe, and this is going to get wacky, that Christy is part of my soul family. That she, her and I have incarnated many times, and we will do so again. So, okay, back to the paranormal. The paranormal. The next thing that happened, which is on the way, I'm starting to learn to ghost hunt, and this is 2007, I believe. And I was living in this horrible house that was in Salt Lake City at the time, and we knew this place was haunted. I'd lived there for about a year or so before Christy moved in. Christy was very old fashioned at times. We never lived together, which I think we probably should have, because a lot of the problems we had in the future after that we probably already have known that stuff if we would have lived together. But I digress. Anyway, so this place had a very thick vibe. You know that my fellow investigators and people who have hauntings, that when a place is haunted, there is this sense that it's very thick, it's very heavy, and this place was that way, specifically where the kids were. I'm sorry for that. That's my alarm clock. The alarm clock is gone. Um, so one night I sleep downstairs because I have a lot of chronic pain and Christy can't stand it. Um, at that time, I felt that crazy ass thickness. It just came out. It came out, and it was next door in the room where my stepdaughter usually slept, but she was sleeping upstairs with Christy. Both the kids did. I think it was really hard for Christy to be able to let go to her babies, that her babies were growing up and needed to stay downstairs. And in a way, that's kind of how our marriage went. We really never were together that much. At least I slept downstairs. But again, I digress. Um, anyways, I went into the room and I could feel the energy starting to tingle, you know? And by that point, I've been watching a lot of ghost hunters, been listening to a lot of paranormal radio. I was going out to meetup groups. I hadn't started investigating professionally yet, but that was to come in a few months. So took my recorder out and asked this, and I said, "Is there anyone who wants to communicate with me tonight?" And I got the the hair on my back of my neck just stood up, and I got something on the audio. I played it back, and it was this teenage girl saying, "Why?" I was like, "Why? Why?" And I go upstairs next morning because I don't want to wake Christy. I'm like, Christy, look what I got! Look what I got! And I play it for her, and she turns pale white, and she looks me straight in the eye, takes that finger of hers, which she would wag at me at times. You know what that's like, you guys who are married. And she said, "Never do that in my house again." And I didn't. I did not. I find that funny because in the last few months of her life, um, she came to me for help. And I think she really didn't need the help, but I think she wanted to reconnect with me. And she was talking about ghosts that was in her house. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna start misting up, and I'm probably gonna start crying here. So um, please bear with me. Uh, and she would contact me and say, "I have a ghost in my house, and I don't know what to do with it." And I said, "Well, this is what you can do with it." And in a lot of ways, the lesson that I taught all you guys last time was kind of for her. It was for her because Christy was a big fan of the show. I don't know if she was a fan of the show or she was just a fan of me, but but she would listen religiously until she had her stroke. And it's kind of why I'm doing this today, because she was a fan of the show. Anyways, um, I was teaching her how to do EVP. Um, I was telling her all the things that I told you guys last time, giving her some techniques and stuff. And I kept on thinking to myself, it's like, well, damn it, why wasn't she this way when we were married? We could have been doing this together. Because I know she would get annoyed that her husband would be out all hours of the night hunting spirits. And the fact that we could have done this together would have been amazing. But alas, that was not the case, because Christy chose to leave. And we're going to get into the metaphysical part of this. And I think this is very important because, as you know, I told you about my near-death experience. I told you that I nearly died. I've nearly died on a couple of occasions. Um, though I'm a ghost hunter, though I'm a medium, I tend to be very skeptical in my own views because I am a ghost hunter. Um, that I absolutely believe in life after death, but I need it confirmed for me. Okay, so here's where things get a little weird, and I think this is a gift to me. I found out that Christy died 3 weeks ago. I was called by her sister, and she told me what happened. And one of my gifts, and I'll talk about this later, and those of you who know me well, you know that I'm like the kid from The Sixth Sense. I can talk to dead people. And it's one of the things that makes me such a good investigator. I'm not good at it, but Christy started coming to me probably the day after she died. And she told me this, and this is very important. And she said, and of course, this is like telepathic stuff. Uh, any psychic out there knows what I'm talking about. And you're going to say, oh, it's all in my mind. And I thought that too. But there's proof that it's not. So Christy told me and said, she came, I felt her. I felt her presence. I was terrified, by the way. This is my ex-wife. We had fought for years over finances and money and all that stupid divorce stuff that never should have happened, because we should have been together, but we weren't. Um, but she came to me and she said, Phil, I'm really sorry. I had to leave. I was trapped. But you and I are, I'm going to cry again. I'm going to cry. You and I, our business is not finished. She said, she said, sorry, I'm very sorry. She, okay. She said, she said, in about 80 to 90 years, you and I are going to meet again. And she said, and we will be married, and you will be my wife. And I laughed out loud and I said, oh my God. And then she was gone. And then 2 days later, I left for Utah um, on the airplane and for Christy's funeral, a celebration of her life. I don't know if she would want it to be called a funeral, because everything was kind of a celebration to hers. So the night before the funeral, I start smelling this amazing perfume, which was hers. It's hers perfume. Her perfume smells like old lady perfume, and it's very distinctive, and it's overpowering. So the whole night, this perfume keeps coming into my hotel room, and of course, investigator mode just switches on like that. Boom. And and I start searching the place to try to find the damn perfume or the smell of something. And I smell pretty much everything in that damn hotel room. And I can't find it. And then the perfume comes again, and then it disappears. And then it comes again, and then it disappears. And I hear her voice again in my head. Remember, this is in my head. And she said, you and I have always had this thing where when during holidays, we would go to the hotel and we would get in our bathrobes and we would eat and we would make love all week. I mean, all weekend. And she said, this is the last time we do this. And I'm going to be with you all night. And she was. And she was. And of course, at this point, I think I'm going completely nuts. I mean, I've done readings for people, their dead grandmothers come through, relatives, such and so forth. But I've never had something this powerful. And she started to tell me how much she loved me and how much she missed me. And and we were just there. I felt her spirit the whole night. And then I went to the funeral. And I walked in and there were a bunch of pictures of me and her together. And the whole family was there, including my stepkids, my former stepkids. No, they'll always be my stepkids. They're my stepkids. And I go over, this is a little bit after, I'm the first one to speak about her. And everyone knows how much I loved her. And I did. I did love her very much. I always will. Uh, but I go over to the table that has our pictures, and I'm going through these pictures. And we have me and Christy had a mutual friend who was a neighbor, and she's a medium psychic. She runs kind of like a psychic company. Um, she did a lot of past life regression work on me, and we're not going to talk about that. But she's very gifted, and she sends her friend over to me. Her name is Wendy Arrington, by the way, and I'm pretty sure she does readings. I would check her up if you're in Salt Lake. Anyways, sends her friend over to me and she says, Christy is visiting you and she wants to know how much she loves you and that you will see her again. And I said, I know. She came to me last night with the perfume. And on that table was her perfume. They put her perfume and a lot of her articles and pictures on this table that was in this greenhouse where the funeral was. And her perfume was right there. So when this person told me this, I smelled the perfume and it was the perfume that was filling the room. So it's at that point I knew that I'm still skeptical. Um, but I knew now that what I am feeling was actually her. And I knew after that point that even though I tell myself this all the time and I've had so many weird ass experiences, that death really is not real, that it doesn't exist, that as Christy put it last night, she said, we are all light, that you don't understand who you are or what you are, but we are light. We are living light. And this is what she told me last night. Anyways, I'm getting a little bit off the story. So yeah, I did the funeral. I went into her house where she committed suicide, where she died, and And all I felt, I was so terrified because my father committed suicide when I was about 23. And I was terrified to go um, into that house because I've gone through a very similar experience. But when I entered that house and I even went into the room where she died, all I felt was her love. And I wasn't expecting that. I went into the house because when I left on Valentine's Day of 2005. It was the most painful experience of my life. It destroyed me for close to a decade, I would say. Um, I'm just healing from it. But I went in there to get some mementos, and and once again, I just felt her love. Her love was all around me, and I got a bunch of pictures from her, and I got the picture of when I proposed to her. I picked up some of her clothes that I gave her, and I got her tarot cards because Christy was an amazing tarot card reader. And if you ever want to know, ask where I got my power. It was from her. She's the one who taught me to sight read tarot. She was she was a ceremonial magician. Um, she was kind of into Aleister Crowley for a while. Not when we were married, but before that. Uh, she was part of some mystical organization. I wasn't with her. She was with her other ex-husband at that time, and that's more his story than my story. Though when we were together, the first time she was studying the Kabbalah really heavily, and she's actually the one who got me into the Kabbalah and to study that form of the occult, that ceremonial magic form of the occult, which I found out later wasn't really for me, but it was her thing because her tarot significator was the Queen of Swords, and that hit her to a T because she was a very, very cerebral person. Where I, Philip Wilson, uh, lived basically on my emotion. She was very mental and very in the mind. She always liked to read. Uh, she liked to study things. She had this thing where if she's reading something, she will underline everything. And I have now have these tarot cards in which everything's underlined, which is just so awesome because it's her. It's her. So, yeah, she was very much into the paranormal. I was in that house and I was fine for about 2 hours. I was in the house where she died for about 2 hours and just feeling her. You know, when somebody dies in such a horrific way, you would expect two things. And this completely kind of changed my paradigm. You would have expected to have that heavy, heavy ghost vibe, and you would have expected that a person to be either earthbound or to be some residual stuff. And there might end up being residual stuff in that house. I don't know. But I can tell you for a fact, there is no way in hell Christie's earthbound. Uh-uh. She passed on. But she is such a powerful spirit that she can come and go at will. And I'm not the only one who is experiencing her. So let's jump to last night, yesterday. So I was kind of depressed, you know. I had a friend over, my former roommate, the great and wonderful Rachel Dollarhide. Um, she was over and she comforted me, and all we did was watch really bad movies for about a week, and that's kind of the stuff we did. She's like my little sister. You know, everyone has that annoying kid sister. Well, I have an actual kid sister, but Dollar Hyde is kind of my surrogate annoying kid sister, and I love her very much. She's an amazing human being and a very good person. But again, I digress. But she was there, and she left, and she went back to Seattle, where she lives. And I was depressed, and I got into the bathtub, and I was thinking, and Christy came back in, and I could hear her and I could feel her. And mostly I can feel her. I feel this intense enveloping of the most love you can imagine. And she said, "Don't be sad. I'm here with you. And I know that you're having a hard time coping with this, and that everyone is. But Philip, I want to tell you something." I said, "I'm not kidding. Where we're going to be together again, and I'm going to be the man." And she said something so inappropriate. So if you have kids, like, close your ears for a second. And she says, "And you're going to have to learn to like anal." And I burst out laughing and laughing and laughing in the bathtub. And I saw in the corner of my eye just a flash. It was just a flash of light. And I knew she was there. Later on, probably about 5 hours later, um, I'm talking to a friend of mine on Facebook. She's a very powerful pagan, and she also practices voodoo, and she's a very powerful psychic. She is my teacher. Her Facebook name is Rowan. I'm not going to give out her real name. I don't know if she would want that. Uh, but Christy came to her, and this is how I know that none of this is in my head, and this is going to be a really good place to stop. And Christy came to her, and she started talking to Rowan. She started talking to Rowan, and Rowan started telling me stuff, all the stuff I just told you about how me and Christy are going to be together, how how I'm going to be the female and she's going to be the guy, and how this lifetime, she said, "You guys have been together for many lifetimes, but you never get it right. This time you got really close to it, but in this lifetime, neither of you understood the responsibility of what it means to truly have a family." And she said, "But in the next lifetime, you will." And then she told me this, and she said, "Christy has been part of your incarnations for a very long time. She's been your wife for many, many lifetimes. But there's another." And Christy told me, I'm sorry, I'm crying again. Christy told me after she died, she said, because, like I said, our divorce was so brutal and so bitter, and it was so painful for both of us. It basically destroyed both of us in a lot of ways for a very long time. I didn't expect I was the one who's going to survive it. I thought Christy would live a lot longer than me, but I digress. But she told me, uh, hold on just one second. Christy told me that she she told me that she refused to incarnate until I was on the other side, that she would be the one to come for me. She said that I'm going to live a very, very long time, and that I was part back in the Celtic days on the Isle of Mona, and I knew this. I've known this for years. That I was a druid and I had 3 wives. And Christy said, "I was your head wife. I was the head wife." She said, "Because I'm not going to be there for the rest of your life, I'm bringing you wife too." She said, "I took everything from you, absolutely everything. Well, damn it, I'm going to give it back." And since she's done that, I've had 2 of my best friends in the world come back into my life. Um, the podcasts keep getting more and more popular. And I'm feeling stronger. My financial situation's getting taken care of. All the things that the divorce took away are starting to come back to me. And she said, I'm gonna find you wife number two. She's out there, and it's yeah, I'm gonna go find her, and I'm gonna bring her to you." And she said, "This is gonna happen soon." And I know this is true because I've had probably 4 or 5 tarot readings that for about a year that all said the same thing: is that second love of my life is about to enter my life. And I don't know who this is, and I just think about it, but I think it's comforting to me that she's out there working on behalf, probably with my dad. And so, so as Rowan is telling me this stuff, and Rowan tells me that you were been in many lifetimes together, and and you're about to find somebody else, and that success is coming to you, and that Christy's working on the other side to bring this to you. And she said she comes to you often, and then all of a sudden, Rowan contacted me and said, "What kind of perfume did Christy wear?" And I said, "It smells like old lady perfume. It's an amber. It's really strong." And said, "Yeah, my room is beginning to fill up with that perfume. My dog is kind of hating it. Can you ask her to stop?" I said, "Yeah, I'll ask her to stop. She's just letting you know that she's there." And so the perfume stopped, and I started smelling the perfume in my room, but it was very faint because though Christy is an extremely, extremely powerful spirit, uh, she's also, um, she can't do everything at once. Another thing, so after that, after Rowan told me everything that Christy was telling me to as to have as confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind. Um, then I felt at peace, and she was kind of with me the whole night last night, on and off. She does this thing now, where I can be very hard on myself. Like I said, I'm uber serious about pretty much everything, though I do have a great sense of humor, and she was just goofy. But I beat myself up, kind of like Xander and Buffy. My personality is like this weird cross between Xander from Buffy and Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. That is my personality, and I beat myself up often. And when somebody dies like that, and you left them because, in a sense, they left you, there's a lot of guilt because in my heart, I knew I could have saved her, but I know that I can't. I couldn't save her because this was her choice and this is her decision, and this is probably some choice that she made in the other world with me as a pact. And I think this is what she had to do because she was trapped. And I'll miss her horribly, but I know she's with me. I know she's right here. And what what I was saying, sorry about that. What I was saying was that now whenever I get hard on myself, she will mentally slap me and say, do you really think that okay, I have a hard time with the way I look. Uh it's just that's just me. I always say, like Art Bell says, I have a face for radio. And Christy will now, if I even think that, I'll have this little voice in the back of my head say, "Do you really think I fell in love with you for your money? You are more handsome than you can imagine, and there are a lot of girls out there who want you, but you never let them in." And she'll do things like that. If I forget something now, like I forgot a lighter, and she told me where it was. She said, "Look by your bed, it's right there," and and it was. And she's been doing that for a week now. And of course, I thought I was going mad, but now I'm not. Another thing she's doing, or she did, well, she has been doing. She's been doing this since she passed. And I found out something about this yesterday, was that I keep finding pennies all over my apartment. And like yesterday, I don't get pennies. I don't get change. I rarely use cash. Uh, but there've been pennies in my apartment. There have been pennies in my car. There's been pennies everywhere. Pennies, pennies, pennies. When I exited her house, the first penny I saw was on the ground next to her house. It wasn't there before, but it was there. When I came into my apartment, my maid who was cleaning up started vacuuming all these pennies. There's pennies everywhere. Well, I found out yesterday, and this is a great way to end this. Um, is because I have stuff to do, and is that pennies from heaven is a Stevens family tradition. That's when um, when Christy's grandmother died, Christy's mom would find pennies everywhere all over the house. And it's a way for them to tell you that we're okay. You know, we may not have bodies, but we're light. We are made of light. And and we're fine. And so yeah, I found that out last night, that the pennies from heaven thing is very real. And it's very intense and very comforting. And I told her, I said that, Christy, you can leave pennies as much as you want. You can be here as much as you want. And she said, I'll be with you the rest of your life, but I'm not going to be your only love, and I'm bringing you wife number two. I'm picking my replacement, and you and I, we will continue in our next life, because death does not exist. Death is a dream, and this was always supposed to happen. And you and I, we're together no matter what, whether we're in body or without body, because love never dies. And you're going to love again. You will love again. But that, but me, for me, we will love each other, and we'll get it right in our next life. And you better start practicing, because I get to be the man this time. And that's a little bit about Christy. I just wanted you to know her. I want everyone to know who she was, and how powerful she was, and how amazing she was. She wasn't a perfect person. None of us are. And when we go through grief, sometimes we get self destructive. And us losing each other was, I think for both of us, was one of the worst things that ever happened. Anyways, um, and that's, I almost didn't get out of this either. But in a way, and this is going to sound weird, we're together again. At least our souls are. And you can't take that away. You can't take away that kind of love. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the future holds. Because I know I have one hell of a superhero working on my side on the other side. And I know now that I'm going to live a very long life. And I know that it's going to be a very happy life. And I know that when I'm in trouble, she'll be there. And I know that she's helping me out. So We've been talking about her for about 44 minutes now. And I want to thank all of you for 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 listening to my show and allowing me this chance to talk about this amazing woman, this amazingly beautiful, vibrant, free spirit that left our planet a little too soon. But I also wanted to share with you, those of you who, a lot of us who are into the paranormal, get into this because we have loved ones who pass. And I wanted to reassure all of you that they're there. They're with you. And if you open up your heart and your mind to it, they will be there with you. And Christy is a very special case because she's such a powerful spirit. So I don't know if all spirits can do what she did, because she has completely changed my beliefs on what a non-earthbound spirit can do as opposed to an earthbound spirit, because I always believe that only earthbound spirits can move things or manipulate matter. But Christy is certainly not earthbound. She goes where she wants, and she is a shining light, which earthbound spirits are not. And and she can do a lot of things that would be considered physical. And that excites me, because if I can't have her in my life as either my friend or my lover or as my wife, then if I can only have her in spirit, then that's enough for me. Because when you get down to it, what is love? Well, love is not just big boobs and big dicks and sex and stuff like that. Love is something very different. And that comes from our spirits, that comes from our soul, that comes from the light that we are, and how my light and her light intermingle. And I believe this happens on the other side. I think that we fall in love on the other side with a very specific soul. Though I think in my case, it's three souls. There are three souls. And and that never goes away, because that love happens in spirit. And if it's true love, it can go through centuries. And with Christy, even though we were so different, it was certainly true love. And I was told that in the end that she loved me as well. And I already knew this because she told me this in spirit. So yeah, that's the story of Christiane Stevens Wilson. 1973 to 2016. She was an amazing, amazing soul. And I am forever thankful that I had those last 3 months with her. And I'm forever thankful that she was a fan of the show. And I'm forever thankful that she's here with me. Christy, I will miss you. I will love again. I know that, and that's coming. But I will miss you. And I wish things could have been different. And I know that you're listening to this, or you're right here with me right now. But here's to you, kid. You're one hell of a woman. Okay, so next week, I don't know what we're doing. We're gonna get back on schedule again. I've had my period of mourning. I'll probably still mourn, but this is just gonna push me further and further in trying to find things. I'm going to try to wrangle up a guest for next week. My friend Amy wants to come on. I just need to learn how to do Skype through Audacity. So that is pretty much the plan. We'll continue. I'm lining up some guests and people who want to be on the show. This was a very different show because this was commemorated. This is a memorial to someone very important. That's also why it's so long. So that's what's going on with Beyond the Beyond right now. Uh, and I think that's really about it. And I'll talk to all of you later. And if I can leave one thing with you, one thing, I want you to take your wife or your husband and I want you to give them a big kiss for me. And I want you to tell you how much you love them because you don't know where they're going to be or what's going to happen. And you may not be able to do that. And spirit is no replacement for actually holding the person you love. Do that with your parents. Do that with your brothers and sisters. Do that with anybody you care about because you just don't know how long they're going to be there. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I don't want this to be a sad episode. I want this to be a celebration of this amazing woman's life. And I thank you for all sharing this with me. And I think that's it. And we're going to end the show right now. And love your loved ones. That's all I have to say.